Folks, it's something that I've been wanting to talk to you about for a long time. In 1955-56, we had a program called the SS Glendora, and it was a children's program through and through. It was run by the children, and the children were the talent in it. It was just something that you never saw. They never saw it then. You'll never see it again. So we're putting together pieces of it. This is my friend Sandy.
Hello.
And she's going to read to you, we had a code of conduct for the little children in the program. They were all dressed up as little mateys on a ship. It was a ship called the SS Glendora.
Okay, and here's from the captain's log of the SS Glendora, the duties of a fleet ship captain. 1. To do good and avoid evil. 2. To be obedient to our parents and respectful and courteous to all. 3. To do unto others as we would have others do unto us. 4. To be loyal and faithful to God and country. 5. To be serious and to call a meeting once a week of your fleet ship members. 6. To watch activities aboard the lead ship SS Glendora every Saturday morning at 8:30 over Channel 4, WBZ TV Boston, and to see that your fleet ship crew members do the same. 7. To lead your fleet ship crew members in all of the activities of your weekly meetings. And 8. To write a report to your skipper once every week.
Isn't that cute? Isn't that cute?
Very cute. Yes.
Yeah.
I like the first 3 very much.
Yes, I do too.
Yes. And the first 4.
Now
Yeah.
let's hold this very steadily into the camera. Now, what's on the second page, Sandy?
On the second page, we have suggestions for how to run the meeting of the fleet ship crew members. And it is suggested that you start your meeting with the work watch. And the first part of the meeting involves coloring, and there's a schedule of dates here as to what the fleet ship crew members should color at each meeting.
Oh, well, you see, this was sponsored by Milton Bradley Company. And Milton Bradley made Cray-Write crayons, and they were all school approved, and Milton Bradley was up against Crayola. And so Milton Bradley made the children little coloring books. So that's the first thing that they were supposed to do at the meeting?
They were supposed to color, yes. They would bring paper, pencils, and crayons to the meeting and color the project.
And what kind of crayons?
Cray-Write by Milton Bradley. Cray-Write certified school crayons. And they would the first meeting in September, they were coloring a picture of the SS Glendora as seen on TV. Then they would color a picture of their school.
Oh, nice.
The second meeting. On the third meeting, they'd color the U.S. flag. By mid-October, they're coloring Columbus's 3 ships.
Oh, this is cute.
And then from there, they go on to color a picture of a horse, a pumpkin, a ghost, a witch, a picture of a train, a pilgrim for Thanksgiving, a turkey for Thanksgiving,
Uh-oh.
an American Indian,
No good, turkey. Bad.
a picture of Glendora's cap and uniform,
Aha, that's a good one.
a picture of the treasure chest,
Yep.
and a Christmas tree.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And then for the second part of the meeting, the crew members would play games. And we have a list here of 5 game suggestions that they could play as many of these games as they would like.
What are they, Sandy?
The first one is the pencil list. You give each member a pencil and paper and have each one list as many states as he can think of.
It's many what?
States.
States.
States, yes. As
States.
many as you can think of, and at the end of 5 minutes, the person who's written down the most states wins.
Oh,
And you can do the same with presidents.
folks, it was fun, but it was educational.
Yes, you could list the names of the presidents, the names of girls' names, boys' names, lists of animals, and television programs.
The SS Glendora.
The second game suggested is called a ditty bag. One crew member goes first and seat all the other crew members in a line. The first crew member says, I went to see And in my ditty bag, I put an, and then he would say something that begins with A, like apple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one would say something begins with B.
That's right.
And then they'd each have to repeat it each turn?
Yes. And if you can't think of something, you're out of the game. And you go through the alphabet, and all the members left in the game are the winners.
That's your ditty bag.
Game 3 was the blindfold artist. Each member gets a crayon and paper. What kind of crayons do you suppose they use?
I don't know.
I think those would be Crayrite by Milton Bradley.
School certified.
Yes, exactly. So one member is blindfolded at a time, and you ask that member to draw a picture of any object you can think of. Dog, cat, car. After each member draws a picture, hold them all up and pick the best one. And
That's when they're blindfold?
I guess,
I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that.
yeah, blindfold each member.
I guess that's what they did.
And then there's Penny Penny. Pick a crew member to be it, have him face the wall so he can't see. Take a penny and put it in one of the closed fists of one of the other members. Now tell the one who's it to look around and say which one has the penny. As soon as it finds the money, the person he found it on becomes it. If he doesn't find the money on the first person he points to, then it turns around, you hide the penny again, and he continues to be it until he guesses right.
Hey, these are fun games.
This is one I play at school.
You do play that?
Similar,
Yeah.
something very similar.
Now, Sandy, these children are anywhere from 5 to 14, 13, 5 to 12. Your children at the Montessori school are 6, 7, and 8?
In my classroom, yes.
6, 7, 6 years old, 7 old. Now,
That's
could
right.
any of those games be played?
Oh,
by-
sure, all of them so far would be good for that age group.
And what are any of these educational,
Well-
would they help them any?
Sure. Yeah, making lists of things is good. The alphabet game is good. I don't know how educational the blindfold artist is, but it'd be fun. They would laugh a lot. And we know that's good. So, yeah. Toothpicks, there's another one called toothpicks. Get a milk bottle and a whole lot of toothpicks. Give 10 toothpicks to each crew member, and each member one at a time piles one toothpick each turn on the top of the milk bottle. If he knocks any toothpicks off, he has to add them to his toothpicks on the table. The one getting all his toothpicks on the milk bottle first wins.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, this would have to be a pretty large lid of
Well,
a bottle, wouldn't it? We
the
don't have those
old-fashioned milk
bottles.
bottles. No, I think that's why it's tricky, because they've got a balance on it. Yeah, it's kind of a balancing game. Sort of like pickup sticks, but on top of the
Yeah.
milk bottle. And then the meeting is concluded with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah, very nice.
Well, thank you for doing that.
There you are.
Tell the people at home about the pajamas today. I think that's a great story.
Well, the students in grades 4 through 6 at the Woodland Hill Montessori School, some of them wanted to wear pajamas to school on the last day before the winter break, and one of the teachers, I'm not sure who, had the suggestion that if they brought a pair of pajamas, new pajamas, to give away to those in need, they could wear their own pajamas. And I think pretty much every child, and that's about 60 children in those grades, did bring in a pair of brand new children's pajamas, and the 6 teachers each took a bag of pajamas to a different homeless shelter where there would be, of course, some families with children staying. And so those children will get some nice new pajamas for Christmas.
And you estimate there might have been 60 pair?
Yes, I think if everyone, I got the impression that all the children participated, so I think,
Well, I think that's
about-
wonderful.
yeah, I think
That's
it is too.
Well, all right. Well, I thank you for that. Now, can we send out some money to some animal organizations?
Okay,
Okey doke.
Should we put this away?
Yes, please. And thank you for covering that so thoroughly. Would you read me this letter? I guess it's two letters. This is a letter from a woman named Tammy Smith in the University of Vermont, and she runs the printing operation there, graphics operation. Would you read me her letter?
Dear Glendora, I want to take a moment to wish you a wonderful holiday and a new year that is filled with much joy and adventure. I did not get a chance to ask you who you were spending Christmas with. You and Franklin did not have children. I seem to remember from the biographical article in Lucent magazine. But perhaps you have a sibling that you enjoy spending holidays with.
Good morning, my dear friends. Do you know something? This is the next to the last day of the year. What year? The year 2017. Anno Domini, A.D., the year of our Lord. The next to the last day. And that poor earth has been spinning and traveling around the sun without a second stop. And look at all that great earth did for us. "365 days, non-stop spinning, 600 miles an hour. I guess. Next to the last day. This is the 19th of December. Tomorrow's the 20th. I'm making a guess that the winter solstice will be on the 21st. Sometimes it's on the 22nd, sometimes it's on the 20th. But usually it's on the 21st. And I just have 2 days, folks, to do 4 New Year's resolutions of 2017, 2016. I think they even go back to 2015. 1, be refined. 2, if you get angry, don't say anything. You can't help getting angry, but you can help saying something. Don't say anything. Write legibly and stay on the regimen of saintly eating. No animal products, just grains and fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and maybe some meat analogs. Well, as you saw in yesterday's video, once upon a time, folks, there was a TV show called the SS Glendora. It was a steamship. And it had a code of ethics. And it was a fun show. And it was live, and it was spontaneous, and it was real. It was people and boys and girls in the flesh. The show was by them, for them, of them, to them. The TV screens had never seen a show like that before. They will never see a show like that again. It had its day, it had its glory, and it did so much good for the world. And the story of the SS Glendora, my conscience has been telling me for a long time to tell you that story. So we began with a code of ethics, which is great. Not only a fun show and spontaneous and full of youth and vigor and kids, it was educational, and it was morally solicitous. Morally. Well, let's start at the beginning. fresh out of college, too fresh, 1950, I went to California, and I was in University of California at Berkeley, a great big one. And I had a job as a laboratory assistant in the Department of Psychology. And I worked there through the academic year, September. Oh, by the way, I took 2 courses, one in criminology and one in tennis. And this was introductory tennis. My friend tried out in the tennis court, and the tennis instructor put her in the next one up. Which would that be? Intermediate tennis. And I was paid money. And then I came back to Springfield, Massachusetts. I had been offered a job as a psychology assistant in the Department of Psychology at the prestigious Smith College, Northampton, Massachusetts, the pinnacle of the Ivy League. But I did not take that. And I went to Washington, D.C. to see if I wanted a career in government. And the cockroaches in Washington, D.C. were pretty large. They were awfully large cockroaches. And the humidity was something that a New Englander couldn't get used to. So I came back. No, I didn't want a career in psychology. No, I didn't want a career in government. What do I want a career in? What am I able to do? You have to sit down. You have to sit down, and you have to have a notebook, and you have to have a pen, and you have to listen. What were you created to do? As Paul said, the spiritual gifts. Some are for speaking, some are for helping others, some are for being priests. These are the spiritual gifts. What are your spiritual gifts? Why are you different from anybody else? What can you do better than anybody else? What are you good at? So around 1952 or 3, around age 23 or so, I listened, and I listened, and I listened. Upstairs in my mother's bedroom, I was alone. There was nobody there, and I listened. And it came up television. It kept coming up television. It kept coming up television. But it's hard. It's hard to get into television. It's over flooded with people who want to get into television. And you're in Springfield, Massachusetts. There's no television in Springfield, Massachusetts. What was that I just saw? I think that was a cat named .com. A flying cat. And it kept coming up television. And it kept coming up television. What television? A producer? A writer? No. Talent. On camera. Talent. On camera. But those jobs are hard to get, and you don't have any experience. Television. On camera. Go. So Bobby Clark, the Broadway comedian of the 1950s, you're back again, .com cat? Had a friend who was driving his car on a joy trip. He had driven it from Hollywood, California, to the East Coast, and he was turning around, and he was going back. And I was offered a ride. Clear across the country, 3,000 miles, in a lovely brand new Ford car. and I had to find a place to live. And I had to look for a job. How old are you? I think this is the year 53, and I was born in 28. So am I not 25 years old? 24 years? I don't think so. I got out of college at 22, 23, okay, 24. And somebody took me to a stock market in Los Angeles, and a board marker. And you would stand up on a platform and there was a board marker and you had chalk. And when the stock prices came in, you would write the stock prices on this board. I think how they do it nowadays by computer, but that's how they did it in 1953 or 2 or whenever it was. No, that was not for me. And then one day I saw an ad in a newspaper that the University of California at Los Angeles Extension, Adult Education, was giving a course in television writing. That I knew I didn't want because I wasn't going to be a writer. But it was being given at the NBC television studios, radio studios, at Sunset and Vine and Hollywood. Woo! Well, that opened the door, didn't it? And I kept going to Sunset and Vine and watching radio shows, being an audience, part of the audience in radio shows at the TV studio, at the radio studios there. And I would go in, be some of the audience and watch the production. But this got me beyond the lobby where you picked up your ticket. This got me up to the 3rd floor, a course in television writing. And when the break came, I looked down the hall and I saw a door that said Personnel Department. Well, and this was at night, and the door was open, and a woman was sitting at a desk. She turned out to be the assistant to the personnel director of NBC Hollywood. NBC. So, I went in and asked her about a job. Her name was Martha. And we seemed to be on the same wavelength as personalities. And we went places together on Saturday on our bicycles. And in no time at all, I had a job at NBC. And I was paid by NBC. And I got a check from NBC. I was a mimeograph operator in the script service department. What script service? You type the scripts for the producers, for the talent, for the shows that were going on upstairs in the NBC studios. Studio A, Studio B, Studio C, and Studio D. And I met all kinds of famous people. All kinds of people. Famous people. Red Skelton, Jack Benny, Groucho Marx, Tallulah Bankhead, Marilyn Monroe, Bob Hope, George Finneman, who was the announcer for You Bet Your Life, Donnie Shore, Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. Well, Shall I leave that to another chapter, all the funny things that happened at NBC? Should I? And go on with my story of the SS Glendora? All right, I'll adjourn on that. And we'll come back, maybe tell you another story of life in Hollywood in the year 1953, 1952. When television was first started. Television came in 1949, very weekly. By 50 it was rolling, and by 51 it was going to be the thing. And it was knocking off the movies and knocking off radio. Television was going to be it. So let me make a decision right now. I will forego that. I will adjourn that, those years in Hollywood, and make another story of that one. So, I tried to do stand-up comedian in Hollywood, and I had a few jokes, and Bob Hope let me do my monologue at the end of his radio show. He was on the studio, and I was at the microphone in front, and he was conducting business with his agents. I don't think he paid much attention. And I did it, and Johnny Pollock, one of the best engineers that NBC Hollywood had, made what did he make it? Well, he made an RPM of it. They didn't have tape. It was an RPM on a great big turntable. And he did what Bob Hope always asked him to do. When it came time for the laughter, he turned up the audio on the laughter and made it sound like the laughter was much bigger. But fortunately, the realization came to me that this is no place to start. If you're starting out in show business, New York or Hollywood is not the place to start. You're young, you're inexperienced, you're going to make mistakes. This is no place for everybody to see your mistakes. So I came to my senses, and I went back home to Springfield, Massachusetts, with the intent to start out in a very small television station and get the experience of talking in front of the camera. Talking to people through a television lens. In those days, through an iconoscope, through a picture tube. And I went up again in my mother's bedroom, where nobody was, and there was a card table there and a chair. And I had a piece of paper, and I had pencil. And I wrote down an idea for a television show, with the intent to put it under my arm and go out and try to sell it to a TV station. On camera, right? Well, this is what came up. These are the electromagnetic waves that came in. A show called Glendora and Her Picture Party. Well, what was it about? Well, it was a story, a small incident in some famous American's life. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Johnny Appleseed. Daniel Boone. Some small incident in their life, or his or her life, and it was told by 5 pictures. Well, first was to write the story, the incident. Next was to find an artist who could depict that interest, that incident, in 5 pictures. I wish that we had those pictures with us now. They were in black and white. They were 9 by 12. And the idea was that a boy or a girl who asked to be on the show would come before the TV camera and he would look at the pictures. And as he saw the pictures, he would tell the story that he saw. He would tell the incident that he saw. And he would tell that story. And then another boy or girl who was closeted and didn't hear the first part would come out and look at those pictures and tell the story that he or she saw in those pictures. Glendora and her picture party. And whichever child came closer to the real story won the prize. Well, let me show you some pictures of that. Show you some pictures of Glendora and her picture party. Here is a young man. Where's the camera? Isn't that sweet? Isn't that appealing? Look at that young man all dressed up in a suit and a shirt and a tie. And here was the picture on the stand. That was the story. And Glendora was listening to him as he told the story. Now hold on, I'll show you another picture. First of all, Glendora would tell the picture to the TV audience at home. Not only can I not see well, but I can't see with a 200 light in my eyes. 200 watt light in my eyes. All right, let's find another one. Here are both of the candidates. And the show was written up in the North Adams transcript. Then you did sell it. I guess you skipped the story. You sold it. You went up to Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where they're Channel 74, UHF, ultra high frequency. WMGT, Mount Greylock Television, A Brainstorm of Leon Podolsky, and I said, would you put this TV show on your TV station, Glendora and her picture party? Yeah, maybe when we get started up and get a signal and the wind stops blowing the signal, blowing the antenna off of Mount Greylock. Yes, we would. And the salesman took the idea and he went out and he sold it to somebody. Very important lesson in television. If you want to be on in television, find a sponsor who will pay for it. Advertising. Very, very important lesson in television. Well, eventually we did get on the air. October, November, December, January, yes, we got on the TV. We got on the air. And this salesman sold Glendora and her picture party to a sponsor in Vermont for a 26-week contract. It was a 15-minute show once a week, and it was on ultra-high frequency. And they hired me as a script writer. Isn't that funny? Remember? You were supposed to go on into TV in front of the camera and not as a writer, but now you end up as a script writer. Well, we had fun, lots of fun. the initial crew, and everybody was a novice. This was television, it's brand new. Nobody had any experience in it, nobody knew. It was all trial and error, and it was all fun, and it was all experimental, and it was all exciting. Where will I pull out of this? Keep this one going. Keep this one going from 26 weeks, I think, from around about January. And the winters in Pittsfield, the Berkshires, are really require stamina. And just keep that in mind. And then on our next session, I'll pick up something that started during that time, something else that started to grow and flourish, just like that turnip over there has flourished since Sue brought it home from the supermarket, and it had been slashed and chiseled and put in hot wax, that turnip. And as I was waiting for it to eat it for Thanksgiving, 2 shoots came up. This individual wants to grow. This individual wants to grow up and have a family. So, a nice great big pot, very expensive pot, and potting soil, which is not dirt cheap, and put it in there and watered it every day, and now it's a glory. It's this big, the foliage. Question: where does that come from? Where does that greenery come from? Where do those leaves come from? From where? Right before your eyes they appear. Like magic. Where does it come from? Okay. Want to hear some jokes? All right. This man said he was so ugly as a boy that when he told his dad he was going to run away from home, his dad said, put it in writing. And when the other kids played hide and seek, he would hide, but nobody would seek him. And what do you call fake spaghetti? What? What do you call fake spaghetti? The great impasta. A man came home from work and he said to his wife, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose a job. The company has found something that will do the work of 5 men. And she said, 1 woman? But then she was very sympathetic and compassionate and helped him. Okay. Bookmark. Where do we resume? In the middle of Glendora picture party, and the seed that began to grow like the turnip. Faith of our fathers living still, we through fire, dungeon, and sword, oh how our hearts beat with joy whene'er we hear that glorious word. Faith of our fathers, holy faith, we will be true to thee, to death. I will be true to helping others and how I treat others. Don't you think you should have a longer shot? To get this in, and this, and this?
Good morning.
Good morning, my dear James Talbot in Beverly Hills.
Yes,
James, how are you this morning?
I'm good.
Well, now, James, tell the folks how you were 9 years old one day and you turned on the TV set at your home. What happened?
Oh, well, we used to watch live TV all the time, and I was a big fan of that Glendora. I used to watch it all the time, and I was fascinated by the way you were using real kids to do a lot of the shows. So you had a big treasure chest. It was all shabby wooden things, like almost that old, and I sent postcards in, and if they picked your postcard, you could come in and be one of the crew members. Is that what you called them? Or
Yeah.
So anyway, it worked out, and I went on once, and then I remember sending in over 100 postcards.
You sent in 100 postcards so that you would be selected for sure to be on the show.
Yes. And now I can't remember. I assume I just came back and over. There were no rules against that.
Jimmy, can you get closer to the phone in any way?
Well, my mouth's pretty close. Is it bad connection?
Okay. All right, go ahead. Excuse me. Go ahead.
How's this? Can you hear me now?
Well, yes, you weren't saying anything.
Oh, all right. I thought it disconnected.
I think
Yeah, I guess there were no rules that I was, people could come back over and over. I guess I don't remember, but I must have kept coming back, and eventually you must have, there must have been, I guess there were some of us that just were volunteers. Came in, remember I came in after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Jimmy, this was in Schenectady, New York,
Yes.
and your daddy worked for, as everybody did, General Electric,
Yes.
and you were in the 4th grade?
Oh gosh, I didn't know.
I think so, if you were 9 years old.
Yeah, I went to Craig School on Balltown Road, when the studio moved eventually, as you know. And then I went to Van Antwerp, it's called junior high back then. I think they call it middle school now.
Yes.
And, what else? I can't, and then, this junior high, also on Balltown Road.
Then how did it happen that you came on the show and then you ended up as a volunteer on the show? How did that happen?
I have no memory of that at all. I don't remember much of that or coming back over and over again. I remember once I started working those things that I did, but I don't remember how that happened.
And so tell me some of the things that you used to do on the show.
Well, I remember my mother took me down on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I remember the studio was empty, and I just come and turn on the lights, and then the kids, I guess they were around my age, would arrive one by one. And I think you would have left a copy of the script of the desk, and then I would go and pick the props out of there was an area like the props for the commercial Foxo and Coco Marsh, I think, and Bactine. I still have Bactine here in my medicine cabinet. and I remember you were upstairs at that time, I think, in an office, and I would, I guess I would get those kids in there. I guess they could Charlie blue shirt, and the girls guess that you win. And I would give them the additions to their accessories to make them look more like they were on a ship or something.
Yes, well, yes, Jimmy, they had to have shoulder pads to show that they were officers, and then they had to have black neckties, and then every child came in wearing a white shirt and either black skirt or black pants, and then every child had to have a cap on, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that area where we kept all that stuff. And then let's see, the show went on at 5:15, isn't it?
Yes.
Then did you come down at 4:30 or something to rehearse the kids or something?
What did you say, Jimmy?
Or did you come down there at 4:30 or something to rehearse the kids or something?
No, we were in the basement of an old bowling alley. That's where WRGB General Electric was. It was an old bowling alley right on the banks of the Mohawk River. And we were in the basement. And the set was all set up in the basement with the 2 cameras and with the very heavy lighting, like 1,000-watt Klieg lights. And then the children would come in, and you and Charlie Elson and Marie DeSantis would help the children dress up as little mateys.
Oh, makeup, that's right, shipmates, right.
Yeah, they were shipmates. And then we would all be ready. There was no such thing as a rehearsal. That was unheard of. And then you would go over and you would pump the little picture of the SS Glendora with all of the flags, all of the signal flags on it, and you would pump it and the theme song would start up.
I was in a meeting last night, and they had the exact music stand, like the one that was used way back then for the ship. It was exactly the same. You could pull it up just with your hand. It's the same brand.
And it looked like the ship was going along in the ocean. And it was the SS Glendora, steamship Glendora. And then we would come on, and what did we do on the show? Or were you too busy working to know?
Well, what I forgot to tell now, there were 2 times in the show that I felt that I had done things that were wrong, and like a dog who feels that a dog did something wrong and is being punished. And the first one was when I was doing the ship, the back fell off one. Because it was just, it had been worn so much, and it dangled by the string. And I felt like I'd done, and I'm sure he said, don't worry about it, we'll fix it with tape. But, and then the other time was when I told you this, when I knocked over one of those jars of cocoa Mars.
Oh no, chocolate syrup all over the studio floor?
Oh, you don't remember that?
I do not remember that. I remember you're telling me about it.
Yeah, it was, and then it must have been just before the show started, or something like that, and then I went out into the hall, and I remember I was crying. And I remember, well, I used to call her Gert, but it was probably Gert, short for Gertrude.
Yeah, Gert, for the cleaning woman.
She came along and consoled me. And nobody ever got mad at me. It was just, one of those, at that age, those things are...
Well, I think they probably chuckled. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure I wasn't worried about you being mad at me, but I was, I just didn't want to be a big for the crew, who were all my guys. But, and then imagine remembering that so vividly. It was like it happened last week.
Really, Jimmy? How old are you now?
70 years old.
So the SS Glendora was on TV on WRGB Channel 6 Schenectady starting in the early summer of 1955. And it went until, and then it started, and then it went into 1956. Now, tell us some of your memories about the show.
Well, I also remember a story I told you about. You sent me to get some milk. So, a bedtime stories must have been between 5 and 5:15.
Uh-huh.
And it was in this upstairs studio, which, as you know, is a huge, big studio. So you must have sent me up there between 5 and 5:15 to get some milk that you were out of down there. And so you must have been to make something in the air, I guess. I don't know. Oh, wasn't one of the things a chocolate additive you have to add to milk?
Yes.
So I went upstairs and they were shooting the show. They were showing down the air, and I just ran across the
In front of the camera?
to get some, ran, being quiet as I could. And I remember, I think the cameraman's name was smoked a cigar. Was that Charlie or?
Go ahead.
So he waved at me silently, and I saw him, and he called me over and whispered into my ear, and said, "You just ran in front of my camera that was down the air."
Everything in those days, folks, was live. You understand this was 1955. There was no such thing as videotape. No such thing at all. Everything was live. And so there was Jimmy. He went in front of the camera in front of a live show.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, and of course I didn't think about that at that age, but kids today, they think like Saturday Night Live is live. That's all delayed, edited, edited and everything. And there's such heads and censorship, all these things. I mean, back then, there was no censorship, but I knew it.
Oh, no, there was no editing, no such thing. Everything was live. You went on and...
I mean, and there was no corporate override on shows like Trader Van and Glendora. There was no, I'm sure there's no one that came into you and told you there were all kinds of things you couldn't talk about, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. I mean, it just wasn't an issue back then.
There was hardly any network. Even though WRGV was NBC, there was hardly any network. And
Well, what I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, is I remember WRGV going live local at 9 in the morning after the Today Show. And I think during the week, we were live all the way up until 3 o'clock from that mid-year. Is that possible? Do I remember that right?
it was pretty close. There was 9 o'clock Ernie Tatro. I don't remember anything in the mid-morning, but I remember Kathy came on at noon with her cooking show, and Earl Jarvis played the piano at 1 o'clock, and Trader Van was on at 1:30. Then there must have shown movies or something in the afternoon, and then started up Freddie Freihofer, the SS Glendora, Bronco Bill, and then the after 6, 7, and then the news. So that's pretty much as you remember it. It was live practically all day long.
Bronco Bill was on right after SS Glendora, right?
Yes. We used to have to clear out of the studio. We have to clear out of the studio. All the kids and everything we had to clear out of the studio so Bronco Bill could go on right next to it, back to Glendora.
Yeah, I remember them striking that set and putting up the new one. They could do it, what, a couple minutes?
Yep, that's it. During the station break. And a couple of commercials, They had 2 minutes. That's exactly what they had. And that was to change the boom microphone around. And back in those days, it was a boom microphone. We didn't have lavaliers until later. Change the lighting, turn the lighting away from my SS Glendora set onto the Bronco Bill set.
You mean when you started SS Glendora, we had a boom and we didn't have lavaliers?
We did not have lavaliers when we first started. We had a boom microphone. A man,
Now that I think back, I remember it.
a man was on a platform with wheels, and somebody had to wheel him around, and then he had to zoom in and out with a microphone on to whomever was speaking.
Yeah, I remember those two cameras crammed in there with a huge wood tripod, and that, yeah, it's amazing. I used to see once in a while sitcom takeoffs on live TV back there, TV shows and stuff, and they had it all wrong. They portrayed these people as a bunch of pumpkins and fools, and everything that went wrong really loud and all that. That's not at all the way it really was.
What was special about the SS Glendora?
Well, that the kids ran the show. Basically, you turned over a lot of the duties of what a host would do.
Yeah.
The kids who were running the show, and the other thing was really important is you didn't talk down to the kids at all.
Did not talk down to the kids at all.
Yeah, and that was a big part of the show, I thought.
That certainly was. I always believed in that, folks. I always talked to children on an adult level. I talked to them as if they were adults. And that made them act as adults.
Yeah, I felt it was one of the best parts of the show. We've taught it was an amazing time. I'm trying to think of other things that happened. Let's see.
So,
I used to. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I can remember.
Yeah, I just remember the other thing that was interesting about that period of time. I had to run at that place. I guess because I was there so much. I could go anywhere in that building, and someone said you can't go here, you can't go there. No one even blinked an eye.
Yep. You were like a worker. You were like an employee.
Yeah, I would go up and watch the master control, and then as you know, I would hang around late after the office workers went, and I would go through the wastebasket, and I would find script slides that I would take home, and and just because I started my own little studio in the basement with wood cameras, and after you had satellite 6, I built that satellite 6 set in my basement.
You called it Satellite 9.
Satellite 9.
And your call letters were what? WG? WJ? What were your...
JGT for James Starwood Talbot.
Yes, for James what, Talbot?
Starwood.
Yes.
And I saved those slides. As a few months ago, I still had those slides. And I just recently scanned them digitally, because I didn't have a way to project them.
Where do people see this?
Where do people what now?
See this? What's your address on the internet where they can see your TV show, your little TV station?
Oh, well, I can give them both fields, but I don't think there are any, I think the best way to do it is for them to look for me on Facebook. It's Jim Talbot.
You look for Jim Talbot on Facebook, okay.
Yeah, but in Jim Talbot, they should also, if you search Jim Talbot Beverly Hills, and then I'll come up.
Jim Talbot, Beverly Hills. Now, you had a little wooden camera, you said, and you had a little eyepiece in it, I remember.
Yeah, it was, now that I look at it, it was kind of strange that I did that, because I went down there all by myself,
down in your basement, yes, down in your basement.
I build all my own sets and all of that. And of course, I have slides. A number of those slides are up on my Facebook page under photos.
Yeah.
And, I remember that chip that you had after Glendora went off the air, I stored that chip in my basement for you for years.
Oh, that's nice. And it was Jim Fiss who did the airbrush. He made that beautiful ship. It did look just like a ship, didn't it?
Oh, well, that was the other thing that's kind of, but that set was not just a local TV set. That was top quality. It was all airbrush. It was a beautiful set.
Beautiful ship. And Jim Fiss went on, folks, to make a Jimco maps. He made maps of this area. A Jimco map company.
I knew about that because I somehow contacted the WRGB alumni group, and they told me about that. And I saw pictures of it. And that setting did for you for Satellite 6 was also very, I thought, ingenious in that he took the Warner Brothers characters and made constellations out of them.
Yeah.
That was very, very ingenious.
Now, Jim, what else do you remember about the show? Have you got any other memories or any other statements or any other opinions?
Well, it was just on a personal basis, it's one of the highlights of my life. I'll be 70 years later.
Yeah.
And I think it gave me my start, really, and it was, the best part of it was...
At 9 years old, folks, he got his start.
Yeah, given a lot of responsibility, and that means a lot to someone my age.
Now, Jim, has there ever been anything like it since?
Well, I think slowly television went all downhill from there.
It did. It certainly did.
The way it was. Yeah, the way it was. It was a different form. I can't possibly describe it. It wasn't just live. It was also, I don't know how big Schenectady was, but it was a whole sense of community. What local television did. Everyone watched it, they knew what was going on, they would see their friends on the air. It was an entirely different world.
Yes.
The commercials were fun. I still have some of the commercials here.
Yeah, they were fun. Anything else you want to tell the folks, Jim?
No, but just after you figured this out, I went on to, I did almost 30 segments for Sesame Street. I shot
Oh, good.
And I worked for one of the top TV commercial production companies in LA, and now I have my own. I do all kinds of videos and documentaries. Now they're up at I call my CaptivateSpeed.com. So I do all of that. But it all started in Schenectady.
And you just did your 13th Christmas show?
Oh yeah, I do these annual Christmas videos. It was the 7th. I do one each year. I spend a lot of time in about 12 minutes long.
And we can see that on YouTube, can't we?
Oh yes. My YouTube channel is Captain HD.
Say again?
All one word. All one word. CAPTAINHD. All one word.
Say it again, Jim.
And C Captain HD.
C as in cat.
CAPTAINHD.
Captain.
All one word.
Captain, right?
Yes, Captain HD.
Okay,
All
dear.
one word.
Okay, anything else you want to share with the folks about the SS Glendora?
No, just that it was a wonderful time in my life. I'm grateful it happened.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful for you, Jimmy. And Marie DeSantis and Charlie Elson. Okay, honey.
All right, well, Merry Christmas, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah. And of course, what will we be talking about? We'll be talking about the SS Glendora, right?
Yes. Great old time.
Goodbye, my dear friend of 62 years.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye, dear. Now, men folks, we're going to continue our joy of sharing the past. Gregory, my friend, is helping me, and we had our saintly eating. We had wheatina mixed with cream of wheat, with soy milk, brown sugar, and we had fresh baked bread out of the oven. Gregory's going to show you the group of pictures, and I'm going to do the voiceover. What was the fun of a chat with Glendora? The fun of it was, folks, that here was a show for children, by children, and of children. Now Gregory's going to show you pictures. And it was live, and it was real. There was nothing phony about it. If anything bad happened, well, enough people to fill Yankee Stadium saw it. 57,000, 60,000 people saw it. And there'd never been anything along the pike like television. And there were personal appearances associated with it. I would go to stores and meet the children and autograph pictures and talk to the dear little hearts. I would go to assembly programs in the schools, and I would just be with the children, and to them I was like Bob Hope to the service people. You know, Bob Hope went to the servicemen way out in the battlefields, and Bob Hope could do no wrong, and they were just so glad to see him, and it was joy and ecstasy on the part of the audience. And that's the way it was with the little children. I was like Bob Hope to the servicemen, and I could do no wrong. And we do have a RPM, 78 RPM, of one of the school appearances. As I say, there was no videotape in those days. And you will get that flavor. The love of the children and Glendora's love for them. Funny things happen. Bob King was a very tall and very thin. He was the floor manager, and it was his job to do whatever the director told him to do. And the director was up in the control booth, and he would tell the cameraman what to do. And Gregory's going to show you a picture of, it wasn't just one lens, folks. No, it was a circular metal plate, and there were 3 different lenses in it. One was a close-up lens, one was a long-distance lens, and I don't know what the third one was. But in order to get a shot, the director would say, take camera 1, and that would give camera 2 time to get around and get the next picture that the director wanted. And then he would cut from camera 1 to camera 2. It was very primitive. These were General Electric cameras, folks, and the cameras were just this long, okay, this long, and they were this tall, and they were this wide. What do we have today? Somewhere in this apparatus is a camera that's even better than the camera that we had in the General Electric studio in Schenectady. So this towering Bob King, he had to get something over on my set, and yet he couldn't get himself into the picture. And I was looking into the camera, doing the talking, and here's Bob King, and I can see him out of the corner of my eye. and he stubbed his toe, and he was struggling so hard, folks, to keep himself from losing balance and falling into the TV camera picture. Well, that just was funny. And I just started to laugh and laugh and laugh. And I don't think I told the people then what was wrong. Another time I was doing a commercial for Junior Bouterie, and he was giving away free lollipops for the children who came in to buy his shoes. And he says, all the time Glendora's doing that commercial, I want her to be eating a lollipop. So I was doing the commercials, and my commercials were all ad-lib, they were all live. And by that time we had lavalier microphones. The first lavalier that came in, folks, was this big. It was an RCA. And it would hang on your chest, and it was that big. But then they came in with a little lavalier that was only this big, and about the size around of a quarter, 25-cent piece. All right, so I had the lavalier in this hand, I had the lollipop in this hand, and there was a little boy over there, and he was about to knock the set down. And so I was giving him the eye to behave, and when I came back and looked into the camera, instead of putting the lollipop in my mouth, I put the lavalier microphone in my mouth. And with my gold bridge, you can imagine what that sounded like in people's living rooms. Then there was a story I think I told you about the little boy who came up to be on the Freddie Freihofer show, the show of just before or after the SS Glendora, and he was a fan of the SS Glendora, and he went up to Mae Dunn, the receptionist, and he said, "Can I see Glendora?" And Mae said, that was in the days when tape came in, they first started taping. Little boy says, "Can I see Glendora?" And Mae Dunn said, "I'm sorry, Glendora isn't live." Well, she said the look that came over his face was pretty sad. But it was a day of live television, a day of great local creativity, and people put to it were very creative, just like our creator, our big creator, very creative. And necessity was the mother of invention. And what's that, the Bactine?
Yeah, the Bactine. Yeah.
That poster appeared in the drugstores everywhere, folks, to get the children to buy Bactine,
Spray on first
which was a
days.
spray-on antiseptic, and it didn't hurt the way the other antiseptics did. It was put out by Miles Laboratories. Who's Miles Laboratories? They make Bear aspirin. No, not Bear, Alka-Seltzer. They make Alka-Seltzer. Speedy Alka-Seltzer. So the children would come rushing in, and then we would rush around and put neckties on them. Now, Gregory would show you some of the children in their costumes. And then we put shoulder blocks on them because they were officers of the ship. And then they had the cap that had the WRGB identification on it. Now, this was a ship, and we had flags. In those days, you didn't have computers, you had flags. That's how you signaled from one ship to the other. And our flags said SS Glendora, Channel 6. Well, the whole idea was a grand idea. It was a grand idea for television as far as seeing things. It was a grand idea for children as far as being a lot of fun and a great deal of education and a great deal of high morals. I never paid any attention to this, but a couple of people have mentioned, like Bobby Reno and Diana Wellington, that back in the 50s, women weren't skippers of ships, and Glendora showed little girls they could grow up and be the skipper of a spaceship, or the captain of an SS Glendora. That never occurred to me. No matter what I was, you just went ahead and did it. I regret, here was WGY, one of the biggest radio stations, a mega radio station. Its signal would go all the way to Chicago at nighttime from Schenectady. But I didn't ask WGY to audio tape. We couldn't videotape because we didn't have video. But at least we could have audio tape. That would have been something. Every one of those shows should have been audio taped. When was it on? It was on around 5:15 p.m. It was only 15 minutes long. There was a 3 or 4 minute cartoon in it. There were at least 6 children on it every show. They would come on, the camera would go, after the SS Glendora announcement and opening was done, the camera would go to the little matey, and he would say, "This is Chief Mate John Jenkins reporting from Gloversville. This is Chief Mate Harold Jones reporting from Pittsville. This is Chief Mate Bobby Dick reporting from Amsterdam. This is Chief Mate Billy Sales reporting from Albany." Isn't that cute? They had a chance to say their names. And one little boy, when the camera came up to him, he says, "This is Chief Mate Dickie Sykes from," and he looked over to his mother in the studio, "Dickie Sykes from, where am I from?" Right on the TV. Now there was a treasure chest, and children would write in and say, "I want to be on the SS Glendora," and we would put their letter, their request, into the treasure chest, and every program, one of the mateys would go over and pick out 6 letters for the 6 children to be on the program in a couple of weeks. See how it was run by the children? Isn't that great? And operated by the children, as Jimmy Talbot told you, worked on by the children. Let's see if I got any other members. Keep going there with the pics,
Oh, yeah.
if you would please, Greg.
Uh-huh. Alright, so. Okay.
Was it fun being on television? Was it fun being a well-known personality? Oh no, there's no question about that. Wherever you went, people knew you and liked you, and that's really it. They were fans. Were there any ugly encounters? I don't know. I didn't keep track of any of those. Did you get paid? Yes, I did. How much did I get paid? Oh, I think I got paid about $275 a week, and this is in 1950. So for all this fun, you got paid. Were people jealous of you? Were people envious? Did they try to make trouble? Maybe somewhere along the line. Were you the kind of person at the time you wanted to be? No, I was not. I was looking for it. I was seeking it. I hadn't found the truth. I hadn't found the truth. What was the truth that you hadn't found? I hadn't found that it wasn't one person, it wasn't one ego, it was all because others contributed and worked on it, hundreds of others. And that is the truth that makes you happy. I would like to bring out the point again about talking to children. I always talk to them as if they were adults. I always treated them as adults, and that made them act very adult. 3 boys got together and sent in letters to be on the program, and they were older boys, about 14 or 15, and they were going to come down and wreck the show right on the air live. And they confessed to that. It's on the internet somewhere, you'll find it. They confessed to that was their intent. But then they said they came down and Glendora was so nice to them that they went along with the show the way it should have gone. Fan mail? Yes, a lot of fan mail. Did you have to answer? Oh yes, I did. Did a lot of people not know you? Yes, there were many people who didn't know me, who didn't watch television at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. See, this was the kids' hour. It was all kids programming then. That gave in to what? Do you know, folks? Can you guess what it gave into? Sure you can. 6 o'clock news. 5 o'clock news. That's the direction that television took. Gregory, thank you for doing that. Are you half through them, you think?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I'm just about done.
Just about done, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I can tell you? How'd you get along with management? Management at WRGB was very good.
Okay. All right.
Why did the show go up? Well, management made the mistake of listening to a survey that said that people preferred movies to live television. Well, this was a mistake. That is not so. People really preferred the local shows like Earl Pudney and the After 6-7 who played music for us. They liked the live shows like Grant Van Patten, who was a whiz, a great wit, a great performer, Grant Van Patten. He had a trade-in show. People had things to trade. And he was so good at that at 1:30 in the afternoon. He had such good patter. Really a talented person. And they liked Kathy's cooking show, and they liked Earl Jarvis playing the piano. And the news, the sports, and the weather. So the management made a mistake, didn't they? And it's very interesting how that was revealed and how it was implemented to the next step. And I'll pick up there. This is a good suspense place. I'll pick up there. Are you through with the picks?
Yes.
I'll wait for you if you aren't. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. So that'll be an interesting thing. What came after that? It's very interesting. It's like a soap opera.
All right, there we go. All right.
I think the theme song was the Sailor's Hornpipe. Oh, I want to take again and mention Jim Fisk and his artistry and his great acumen. How he could make a set, and he made that set, you know, which is nothing but canvas on a wooden frame, and he made it look just like a ship. You need more time, Greg?
No, I think I'm all set. So.
Yeah, well listen, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry that this is not in chronological order, but it is a Herculean task. And there is so much material that it's really hard for me to coordinate it all. So I'm just going from, the best I can, going from section to section. And I think the next thing we're going to tell you about, we told you how the show started in Pittsfield, Glendora and a picture party. And I said we would pick up on that on around January 1954, and what grew out of that. And so we'll do that next. I don't want to give away the secret. Okie doke. Now then, folks, we left Glendora and a picture party in Pittsfield, Massachusetts in 1953-54. We said that it was sponsored and that it was a 26-week, 15-minute show, and it was to end sometime in the fall of 1954. And so things went along well as a script writer at WNGT Channel 74 in Pittsfield. And I did the show every Saturday night. And then my conscience called me to sit down again in my mother's upstairs bedroom where it was quiet and no interruptions, and to create another show. This was Glendora and a picture party that we were in the middle of now in 1954. And all of the muses and all of the creativity and all of the great electromagnetic waves come pouring in. And the idea for this show was a ship, a steamship. And that Glendora would be the skipper, and that the children would be the mateys, and that the children would run the show. Well, the children would have a costume. What would that costume be? Every child would come into the studio, and he would be wearing black trousers or a black skirt, and he would be wearing a white shirt. And then we would put the shoulder marks on them to show that they were officers, and then we would give them their officer's cap to wear and wear a black tie. And they would be running the ship because they were the mateys. Well, that was a great concept. It took a lot of background reading at the Springfield Public Library, which is superb, Rice Hall reference room. And I learned how a ship was won. And I can't even swim. I am not a water person by any means. I like to have a lifeguard in the soap dish when I take a bath. And I made a portfolio. This is very important, you young people starting out on a career. I made a portfolio of the Glendora and a picture party. And in that portfolio were the pictures that I showed you. And I could walk into a TV station and I could say, this show was sponsored. Well, now, I wasn't just anybody walking in off the street saying I wanted to do a TV show. I was somebody who could bring money to the station. And the station managers had to hear that from the owners. And one such owner did hear that. That would be the Governor Murphy station in Manchester, New Hampshire. Manchester, New Hampshire. And the name of that TV station was WMUR. MUR standing for Murphy. And it was Channel 9. So here was Glendora. She moved. And by the way, Mr. Hervey Carter bought the idea. And how much were you paid? $125 a week. For doing what I just love to do. And that was a show, as the picture proves to you, where the children played games. There was education into the show, and there were morals into the show. And there were jokes, and there was laughter, and there was good times. There was a treasure chest where the people sent in their names to be on the show. and there were contests between the towns. Lowell, Massachusetts it went to, Leominster it went to, Lawrence, Massachusetts it went to, Concord, New Hampshire, where Mary Baker Eddy came from. And there's a sixth one, Nashua, New Hampshire. And we had the towns, children competing from each of those towns in the games and cheering, and it was a great, great period. What year was it again? Early 1954 that the show was conceived. And so when Mr. Hervey Carter, there was no contract or anything like that, and when Mr. Hervey Carter said he wanted the show to go on, and I told the artists, they had a very gifted, ambidextrous artist who made that set. You see that set? Guess where the set was, folks? It was in the garage. This TV station was in an old mansion right at the corner of Route 2 and Route something else. Route 2 going to Concord, New Hampshire. Very famous route, Route 2. Starts way out on the west coast. Then over here, it's right nearby here. It's up in Latham, New York. It goes through Grafton, and it goes east through Massachusetts, through North Adams, and then it goes into New Hampshire, into Vermont, and into New Hampshire, and into Maine. And it ends just about at Bangor. And if you want to go north of Route 2 Bangor, you have to take Route 2A. So this mansion was right on the corner of Route 2, the road to Concord. And the TV set for the ship was in the garage. And the ship that you see painted there on the pictures was on the garage doors. Now this was a garage that was used, and when they opened the doors, the vehicles came in and out, and when they closed the doors, the SS Glendora went on TV. How about that? How about that? I forgot to mention that the top hat picture was a Hollywood picture. That was the picture that they use on the promotion cards and the promotion pictures and the promotion photos. The top hat. That was a real top hat too. Collapsible. And I was collapsible also. Well, back to Manchester, New Hampshire. All day long I would work on the show, what the contents would be, what the games would be, what the jokes would be. And who would be on it, which children would be on it. And Raymond Bilodeau helped me. And they were such nice boys. So, let's see if I made any other notes here. I think the important thing to realize here, that when I put the portfolio under my arms of Glendora and a Picture Party, again, the TV station manager could see that it was sponsored, and they needed sponsors badly. They were there to make money. And that's pretty much what sold the show to WMUR TV, Channel 9, Manchester, New Hampshire. Did you go through all the pictures, Greg? I'll wait for you to finish.
Yeah, I have a couple more to go.
Okay.
All right, so.
On Christmas Day of that year, 1954, the show was on in Manchester, New Hampshire. That's when Franklin Fuller-Buell and Glendora Vesta Folsom married, and they married on Christmas Day. And they married in the very wealthy community of Wellesley Hills, Massachusetts. and they were married in the First Congregational Church of Wellesley Hills on Christmas morning. And Dr. Elmo Wallace was the congregational minister who performed the ceremony. He knew Mr. Grimes, who owned the Concord Inn. Concord, Massachusetts, Lexington, Massachusetts, one if by land, two if by sea. And, sorry folks, I'll get you later on that. And Mr. Grimes and Dr. Elmo Wallace were the ones who treated us to wedding dinner. It was a huge wedding. My mother and father and Franklin's mother and father. And the two of us. And the marriage lasted 48 years until Franklin went to heaven. Franklin was very helpful in bringing about these successes with the TV stations of the SS Glendora and Glendora and a Picture Party. I told the children that the SS stood for steamship, and they said, no, it stands for stupid show. Now folks, when the program ended at WMUR-TV, Channel 9, Manchester, New Hampshire, let me first of all point out what a big step forward that was from Pittsfield, where it was a UHF station. So we moved from a UHF station, Channel 74, to a VHS station, Channel 9. We moved from a weekly program to a daily program, Monday through Friday, and we moved from a 15-minute show to a 45-minute show. So all these were huge steps forward. So when the program ended at Channel 9, I made a book and a portfolio, a little 9 by 12 book, and it had the photographs of the show, the SS Glendora, in Manchester, New Hampshire, and it had all the pictures of those sponsors. Ooh, and I love TV stations, love sponsors. And it had mateys, which was a little garment for children. It had Donald Duck bread, and it had a couple of other sponsors. And it was the children interacting with these products. Well, so it helped, and I took my little book with me. And my goodness, folks, where I went. I went to Providence, Rhode Island. I went to Boston, Massachusetts. There wasn't anything in Springfield or Holyoke. I went to Albany, to General Electric WRGB, Channel 4, or 6 it was then. I went to Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo with my little book under my arm, asking people if they didn't want to buy this TV show, asking TV stations. I went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore. Did I ever make it to Baltimore? Delaware. I went to all of these TV stations, the biggest ones in the Northeast, to try to sell my program. Then I started going to advertising agencies and trying to see so-called account executives who were in charge of a particular product. For instance, State Line potato chips, did they want to sponsor it? What's that candy bar that's coconut? Had the almond on top of it. And it was made by Peter Paul.
What, Almond Joy?
Yes! Thank you, Gregory. This is my friend Gregory Washburn, who's showing you the pictures. And that seemed to be a good idea. How long did this go on? From the middle of December. Well, I don't want to spoil this end of the story for you. All right, it went on December, January, February, March, April, May. And Mother would say to me, and my husband Franklin would say to me when I was so discouraged, they would say, you will have your program on TV by the time the leaves come out. Well, I went to a one-man advertising agency in Hartford, Connecticut. His name was Mr. Whipple. He had one client named Milton Bradley. Milton Bradley, Magic Mary dolls, Cray-Wright color crayons, go to the head of the class. And he said, can I keep the book? Yes. And he kept it for a week. I went back to see him in a week, and he says, can I keep the book a little longer? Because with no book, I couldn't go and proselytize my great show, SS Glendora. So I went back, I think it was the second time, to Hartford, and it was a terrible snowstorm. And we had to drive up Route 5, and there was an acclivity, and the snow had just come down. And how we ever got up that acclivity in that snow. But we did it, we made it back to Springfield, and I didn't want to do any more driving in the snow again. And my mother went with me faithfully every time. And so this time I went, and Mr. Whipple said, I would like to have you meet me at the Milton Bradley Company, which happened to be in Springfield, which happened to be only 8 blocks from my house. We lived at 316 Union Street, and the Milton Bradley Company was right down the hill. Union Street, you crossed Maple Street, and you went down the hill, and there was the Milton Bradley Company. And we went. And we met with Mr. James Shea, who was the president and chief executive officer. Now, Mr. Shea was the president of the U.S. Envelope Company in Springfield, Massachusetts. He was the president, and he was very successful. And he had a little bit of money, and he went and he bought the failing Milton Bradley Company. And he thought he was going to bring it back. And he particularly went after Crayola. Ooh, how ensconced Crayola is. But he went after Crayola with his Cray-Wright crayons. And there were Milton Bradley paint sets. And there were so many Milton Bradley products. And we met. And Mr. Whipple was determined that Mr. Shea was going to sponsor this program. Well, Mr. Shea said he wanted to. Whoopee! And I came home. Oh, my mother didn't go with me, and I came home from that. And I told my mother, and she was so happy. And I told Franklin. Franklin was a reporter on the Springfield Union newspaper. And that newspaper was right across the street from the U.S. Envelope Company. And another thing about Mr. Shea is that he was a trustee of American International College, my alumnus. Isn't this interesting? Here I'd been all the way to Buffalo, all the way to Pittsburgh, to Philadelphia, to Washington, D.C., and I finally found a sponsor. Would I say 9 blocks from my house? Actually, I don't think it was 9. It was 1. I think it was only 3 or 4. Well, first they wanted to put the program on in Providence, Rhode Island. Then they got very smart and said, that's stupid. What about the biggest market in New England? The market that dominates New England, the hub of the universe, Boston. Woo! Boston. WBZ Channel 4, which dominated New England. Wow! They were going to buy the airtime for that? Yes! As Mr. Whipple said, and then started the production of the show. And my mom and dad started changing the flags on the sign on the children's caps, changed it to MB, Milton Bradley. And we got all these promotionals ready, and I wanted to do personal appearances in the stores, and all the production of the show started up. And the newspapers in Boston got very interested in the show because nobody had seen anything like it before. So many children participating all in these little uniforms and playing games and having a good time and being educational in all of these commercials. And nobody will ever see it again. So the Boston Globe did a full-page story on it. The Boston Herald did a quarter-of-a-page story on it. The Boston Globe, the Boston Herald, the Boston Post did a full-page story. And Gregory will be showing you these full-page stories. And then the grand of them all in Boston, the Christian Science Monitor, where Mary Baker Eddy's mother church was. They did a story because they could feel that it was good television and good for the children. So the program was to start in September or October and get ready for the Christmas market. And I told them how they could have store tags, you know, like Filene's and like Jordan Marsh, all the great, great big stores in Boston. And I taught them how to do that. And they decided which programs, which products would be advertised. The Cray Wright, the Magic Mary doll, go to the head of the class. And they wrote the commercials, and I learned the commercials by heart. And then, I don't know who built the set. Maybe it was somebody at WBZ. I had no contact with any personnel at WBZ at all. By the way, this was a Westinghouse flagship station. WBZ, Channel 4, Boston, was owned and operated by Westinghouse Broadcasting. I went to Jordan Marsh and appeared there for the children and autographed any game or any product that they bought. I went to Woolworths, and of course this helped the sale of the products. The buyers brought more products. So the preparation of the program was from May, June, July, and August. And when I was coming back from Boston on the Peter Pan bus, there had been no rain, folks, in July. It was a drought all around that part of New England, Boston, Worcester, Springfield, and the rural sections. And we got to Framingham, and it was really pouring down, and the ground was so hard that the water would hit the ground and the raindrops would bounce. And they started filling, nothing would absorb into the ground, and so all the water went into the streams, and all the streams flooded. And we went by houses where we saw water pouring out of their living room. Went by one house where the man and the woman were standing in the front door of their house, and you could see the water pouring out over the threshold. And I remember a volunteer worker saying to the bus driver, "Stay on this side of the road. There is some road left there," meaning that half of it had been washed away. And in order to get from Boston to Framingham, this was, to Springfield, you couldn't go straight through. There weren't any roads left. You had to go way up, around, high, up. And we left Boston at 5. We didn't get to Springfield until midnight. What a harrowing experience. And I remember Winston, Connecticut, Main Street. Half of it was left, and the Mad River had taken off the other half of Main Street. Well, and I called Franklin at the Springfield, Massachusetts Union, and I thought he would want the story. He was on the city desk at the time. He had been promoted from being a reporter to being a city editor assistant, and he did all the assignments. And I thought he would want somebody to go out and cover that. What I had just seen from Boston to Framingham to Worcester to Springfield. Well, September, the program goes on the air. And Gregory has all these glorious, fun pictures to show you of it. Everything went fine. My mother helped me. I'm trying to see the pictures that Gregory's showing you.
Oh, yeah.
And TV Guide wrote it up several times. In fact, it was the darling of TV Guide. They wrote it up several weeks. They gave it much more attention than they gave any other local programming. Even though TV Guide came from Triangle Publications in Philadelphia, they did have local editions, like the Boston edition. Isn't it sad? Can you imagine? All that glitter, all that glamour, and still no video. Videotape hadn't been marketed. Somebody made a kinescope. You know what a kinescope is? It's simply putting a film camera in front of a TV set and filming what is on the TV screen. It's not very good. And they did arrange for me to see that kinescope, and how I would love to have that kinescope today. Well, Mr. Shea, I would report to Mr. Shea, directly to Mr. Shea, the president and CEO and owner of Milton Bradley. And I would give him the progress reports of everything that was happening and the good things people would say. Mr. Shea was an indelible Boston Red Sox fan. He knew every move of every player for years, for decades. And he was very Irish. And I would take things to his home in Springfield. It was a grand experience. it was grand grandeur. It really was. So the SS Glendora had gone quite a ways from Glendora and a picture party in little tiny Pittsfield on a little tiny TV station, all the way up to Boston. And the photographers were good. They took, of course, it was particularly photogenic, as you can see by all the pictures, particularly photogenic. Isn't that lovely? And the sweet children. And I had little children starting their own clubs, starting their own ships, their own fleet ships. And we read you that, how we had the code, the moral code, you know, be kind to everybody, and love God, and respect your parents, and don't steal, and don't lie. Have you seen the newspaper articles yet?
Yes, okay. Alright.
It's okay, I got it.
Alright, so. Donuts. This is Northern Brothers Bread Donuts.
So this that you see, all of these pictures that you see, now it was a 13-week contract. I don't remember any contract. I don't remember signing anything. I really don't. It was all trust. It was fun having a great big company like that behind you. And I was paying all my expenses, and they said, no, you don't do that. We will pay them. So I then began to learn how to submit a list of what I spent and for what. But I was getting the experience of talking into the camera. And I don't think I was that good at it. Well, because I hadn't had that much experience. But the honest intent about it, and the interest in the children, and the love of them, and the enjoyment of their company, and as again, the whole thing about the show was that here it was, a children's show run by children, for children, by children, of children, to children. So, young people, how old was I then, folks? It would be the year it was the Christmas of 1954. And it was the year that Franklin and I became husband and wife at the First Congregational Church in Wellesley Hills, where all that money is. And Franklin called up. Well, when Franklin was a newspaper reporter, he was given the beat of the church reporter when the church reporter went on vacation, and he became very much a friend of Dr. John Elmo Wallace, who was the minister of the First Congregational Church in Court Square in Springfield. But John Elmo Wallace was very able, and he was chosen by the congregation in the very wealthy Wellesley Hills, where Babson Institute is, and Wellesley College. He was chosen to be the minister there. And so when it came time to make wedding arrangements, Franklin called Dr. John Elmo Wallace, and wife Lucy said, well, he isn't in right now. Franklin called to make the wedding arrangements, and Lucy said, well, is it anything important? And Franklin said, no, I'll call back. Well, Lucy never let him forget that. And we were married on Christmas Day at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was a huge wedding. My mother and father and Franklin's mother and father. And then we went to the Concord Inn, Concord, Massachusetts, Lexington, 1 is by land, 2 is by sea, Paul Revere. And we had lunch at the Concord Inn, and either Dr. Wallace or Mr. Grimes, his friend, paid for it. My mother and father went on to the state of Maine, where their relatives were, for Christmas. And Franklin's parents went to Connecticut, where all their people were. Franklin and I went to Springfield. Oh, it was cold. Oh, it was so cold. Oh, it was so cold that Christmas Day. It wasn't very nice, Glendora, to be married on Christmas Day. It took Dr. John Elmo Wallace away from his family and children and wife. How many more picks do we have, Greg?
Oh, just a couple there, so yeah.
Okay, then let's stay with it to the end.
Alright, so. Yeah, so they're still going, so.
Be thou forever near me,
Alright.
my body and my friend. I shall not fear the challenge, if thou art by my side, nor wander from the pathway, if thou wilt be my guide. So it was a 13-week commitment. Oh, dirty business. Captain Kangaroo tried to take the program away from me, or tried to take Milton Bradley away from me. And Mr. Shea, being the person that he was, with all those personal ties to me, my husband, a reporter of the Springfield Union across the street from the United States Envelope Company, of which he was once president, and the American International College ties, and the fact that I lived up the street 3 or 4 blocks from the Milton Bradley Company, and he lived in Springfield also. Oh, and also James Shea Jr. for a while went to classical high school, where I was for a while. Later he went to a private school. But and his girlfriend, James Shea Jr.'s girlfriend, Marilyn Hunderup, was a pretty close friend of mine in high school. But Mr. Shea, being the man that he was, did you think he let the business go to Captain Kangaroo, CBS morning show? Do you think so? He did not. He remained loyal to me, and he saw it through. So the program went its 13 weeks, and Mr. Shea, I asked him to renew it. And he said, I will think about it. You call me. He was dealing directly with me. Where was Mr. Whipple at this point? I met Mr. Whipple's wife. I think they came to Boston. It came time and I called up Mr. Shea, can you renew it? He said no. Now, I didn't understand why. Now I understand, folks. Don't you see, their income is Christmas time. It wouldn't pay for them. It would not be financially feasible for them to advertise the rest of the year. The receipts, the remuneration would not be there, because that was not the buying season. That was not the buying season for the buying system. So now I understand why Mr. Shea didn't renew, but I understand now why he was gracious enough to extend it 2 weeks. So there again, get out a photo album, fill it up with all of the photographs, showing that it was sponsored, and there again, under the arm, TV station after TV station, advertising agency, there again. It's a fickle business. It's a fickle business, television. People are very easily fired, on whim, volatile, very, very volatile. So just let me review. In 1953 or 1952, it came to me that the thing that I was supposed to do with these years was television, and it was supposed to be on camera television. So we went to Hollywood to try to make the big time, and we realized that that's no place to make the big time if you don't have the experience. So you go back to the little towns and you have the experience, and that was Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Channel 74 WMGTV, Mount Greylock Television, a brainchild of Leon Podolsky, who was some kind of a consultant for Adams Electric in North Adams. Was it Adams Electric? Sprague Electric. And doing the 26 weeks there of Glendora and her picture party. And before that was over, having landed the SS Glendora on the Merrimack River, or is it the Merrimack River, in Manchester, New Hampshire, and getting that started, and resigning from WMGT as a scriptwriter, copywriter, and working on the Manchester show, doing that in all of its glory and its fun and its excitement, getting married, and then going all over the Northeast trying to sell the program again, and then the grace of God, the Milton Bradley Company, and Mr. Whipple. Now, what's happened after Christmas of 1954? That will be our next chapter. What do you call fake spaghetti? The great imposter. Are you through, Greg?
Yes, yeah, I'm ready. So.
You're all through your pictures?
Yeah, yeah, right now.
And the nurse in the maternity ward came out with a darling baby in her arms, and she said to the new dad, "What'd you want? A boy or a girl?" He said, "I wanted a girl." "Well, I'm sorry, this is a boy." And the dad says, "Okay, that was my second choice."
All right, let's see.
Well, now, my dear friends, it is Sunday morning, but it is not Sunday morning communion. It is not Glendora soul to soul. It is a documentary.
An earthquake was rumored to, was not rumored, it was reported to be on its way in California. And this couple sent their young son deep into the interior to be with an uncle, where the boy would be safe.
Earthquake.
And in 3 days they got an email from the uncle saying, "I'm returning the boy, send the earthquake."
recorded this audio. And we are doing a documentary of the Glendora TV career.
Did you go